In this video, I'm gonna break down how 23andMe, the popular service and website dedicated to helping people locate their DNA ancestry and where they come from in the world, is actually so much more than just what you see at face value, and according to my theory, is actually saving the world. And no, this is not going into the theory of how it's destroying the world by collecting all of our data and somehow using it against us. This is a way more optimistic and utopian approach to the controversial service 23andMe. So 23andMe. I recently did 23andMe as well and was able to find that this site not only tells you where you come from, which is why I did it. I just wanted to simply know what my heritage was. But one thing I didn't even think about when signing up for this service is it has a part of the website where it shows you the web of people that you're related to. So I'm sure we've all by now heard a really interesting story about how people have found family members through 23andMe, or Ancestry.com is another one, and didn't even realize they had other cousins out there, that they had a sibling they didn't even know about out there, or in some cases even were told and misled about who is actually their real father. And you can find all these things out. It's just a matter of if that person who is blood related to you has also entered the database. And the more and more people enter this database, the more and more we connect this web of who's actually related to who and what is actually the truth behind these families' stories. And we all know a lot of families got a lot of skeletons in the closet. There's crazy stories coming out because of this new age service, like doctors that are responsible for artificial insemination that actually give their own sperm to like hundreds of women. And there's actually a documentary about this called Our Father, which a friend of mine was in actually as an actress. And yeah, it's like really disturbing stuff. They found out that there's like hundreds of people that are actually siblings within a given small town area, which is also concerning because like they wouldn't know that they were siblings and maybe date, so weird. But like that's just one example. Another classic example you find is like people who didn't know that their father had a baby from a previous marriage and they both show up on 23andMe and now they're connected. Cousins you didn't know exist, family members that were given up for adoption you never heard about. I actually know a guy who donated sperm in college, forgot all about it, never paid it any other thought, and then years later his mom, who was older lady, you know, like pretty much elderly, she got on 23andMe and discovered that she had a bunch of grandkids that she didn't know existed. And she went to her children like, what is this? And her son was like, oh my gosh, like I donated sperm in college, and he ended up finding out like his sperm was popular, and he has 6 kids out there that just are registered in the database. He probably has more, and he even went and met some of them and hung out, and I'm like, wow, that is like crazy, strange, and interesting, cool story. This one I actually love if we want to talk about adoption and all of the families that have someone who was given up for adoption, and then someone finds out later, hey, was there someone in our family that was given up for adoption because I just found them on this site? Yeah, well, check out this one. There was a couple, this is actually a story my mom told me. So she knows of a couple that got pregnant really young. They gave the baby up for adoption because they were young and they didn't know what to do, and ended up actually staying together like for a really long time. They eventually got married and eventually did go on to have their own children. I think like 4 or 5 even, like many kids. And then years later, the original one that didn't make the cut because they were too young and it was given up for adoption, the original kid found the family through 23andMe and literally came and met all of their siblings that weren't just half siblings, but full siblings. And it's like, wow, crazy. So you might be thinking, yes, Shay, we've heard all these stories before, but how exactly is that saving the world, as you so proclaim in your very utopian, optimistic view of why this site and this service is actually a good thing, actually a great thing? Here's why. Here's the thing. We have had a really, how do I say, dishonest way of raising children and going about life, really. A lot of what we've been taught and how we've been told told to operate from the time we were young is you have to, at least on some level, be dishonest. You have to, at least on some level, manipulate people or hide the truth, bend the truth, or present yourself not exactly as you are in order to get by, in order to have success, in order to get ahead. We've been taught to keep secrets. We've been taught to fear the truth. And especially the older previous generations, as 23andMe is now revealing, we've been taught that having children out of wedlock or with someone that you don't want to be seen with, don't want to raise a child with, is shameful. And a lot of those kids, as I mentioned, not as much today, but like back in the day, would have been given up for adoption. And I'll bet you this, those parents who did that did not ever think that these things would be traced back to them when they buried it under the rug, said, yep, I had a kid, but I'm never speaking about it. Maybe they go on to have their own kids later and never mention it again. The kids end up meeting anyways, and everyone's like, what is this big family secret that's been kept from us for so long? Exactly, okay, this is the point. This is how it's saving and changing the world, is the more people enter this database, the more that web of secrecy between families and family lines is just closing. People who lied about who's the real father of their child, who maybe didn't even know themselves who's the real father of their child. Siblings that didn't know they had other siblings, cousins who didn't know they had other cousins, sperm donors who didn't know they had 6 kids out there, and now everyone's meeting and it's connecting people in this really interesting new age way that I personally feel is part of God's plan. Divinely to not only, of course, at face value, educate us about our heritage and where we all come from in the world, which is fun, but more so to get the people connected with other people that they're related to that they otherwise wouldn't have known about, and ultimately shed light on and expose a lot of these family secrets that previous generations thought they could get away with and thought it would never come back to face the light of day, but it is. And I think it's God's way of showing us, hey, there's nothing to be afraid of here. Actually, it's okay, and we can all just accept the truth and find out about the origins of who we really are and where we come from. And it's connecting people all over the world. So highly recommend, if you haven't, check out 23andMe. Super cool. It's connected a lot of people over the world, and it has no doubt disrupted so many families who thought they had a lid on their secrets, which I, as a truth seeker and someone who's always striving to be as honest as possible, even when it hurts, I get a kick out of that. And I find that as like God up there, just like, ha ha ha, if only you guys knew that we're gonna have this technology and everyone's gonna find out where they really come from and who's related to who. And it's a cool tool. So check it out if you haven't already. Thanks again, and let me know your thoughts on this topic. Do you think 23andMe is also saving the world, and long-term it's nothing to be afraid of? This database and this information about more and more people's DNA, it's actually gonna prove to be a good thing. Let me know down below, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more vids like this if it was helpful, and ring that notification bell for more. Thanks.